Hello, and welcome to our webinar, The Art of Illustration. I'm Sarah Hunter, Books for Youth and Graphic Novels Editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Today's slides were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the link located there. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we will have the pleasure of hearing from Vanessa Brantley-Newton, author and illustrator of Nesting Dolls, Dan Thompson, creator of the Tig and Lily Series, and Emma Steinkellner, creator of NELL of GUMBLING, My Extremely Normal Fairy Tale Life. We will hear a presentation from each panelist, followed immediately by a short Q&A. And we'll kick things off today with Vanessa Brantley-Newton. Vanessa is a self-taught illustrator, doll maker, and crafter who studied fashion illustration at FIT and children's book illustration at the School of Visual Arts in New York. She is the author and illustrator of numerous children's books, including the New York Times bestseller Sewing Stories by Barbara Herkert. Vanessa currently makes her nest in Charlotte, North Carolina, with her husband, daughter, and a very rambunctious cat named Stripes. Thank you for being here today, Vanessa.
So happy to be here with all of you today. Thank you for having me. I am so excited. I can't wait to get started. So we're going to get those slides up and I'll be able to talk about Nesting Dolls. Nesting Dolls is a book that is very, very near and dear to my heart because Nesting Dolls is about my family and about a very sensitive subject within my community and in the world. I am a person who is in love with diversity, and diversity means everything to me. And I think it's very sad that we don't get to see children of color in books. As you know, we need to be seen. We want to be seen. Children should be seen. All children should be seen, of course. But when African-American children don't see themselves, it definitely sends a message that they are not valued in the society of which they are a part. So I want to make sure that every child, and I mean every child, is seen in any book that I do. So Nesting Dolls is birthed out of a story of me when I was a little girl going to South Carolina. I would be out in the sun quite a bit in that my grandma and grandfather had a farm, and it made my skin a whole lot darker. And I was fine with it, but other people weren't. And they kind of let me know that they weren't. And that was not just within my family, that was in the community as well. Oh, you're so dark. Oh my goodness, you know, she's a very, very dark girl. And it began to feel like, well, they don't like me. They don't particularly care for dark-skinned people. Well, Annika in this book, that's our protagonist, Annika is feeling that kind of way. Annika is feeling like she's the sore thumb that's sticking out because she views her mom and her sister and grandma as more beautiful or smarter or, you know, just more valuable than she is because of her dark skin. Now, while that's not really said throughout the book, it is really encouraged for children to take a look. So we can go on to the next slide. This is the family on their way to Low Country, South Carolina, to a place where we usually go when we go down south, which is called Low Country. Low Country is a part of South Carolina that's along the coast. Right now, we're getting ready to experience, unfortunately, a hurricane. But that is common in the area in which we live because we live near the beach and we live near water. You can go on to the next slide. But this is Annika and her sister Sori. Sori is the oldest, and that's the brown girl to your left of your screen. And then there's Annika on the other side in her bright yellow. And I have this thing about brown girls in yellow. And so when I'm working on picture books like this, I really like to play with color. Color is very, very important to me. And so I try to punch you in the face with color, but also create a mood as well. And so this is she and her sister on their way. And even in the background there, you see how you have little streaks of the building to just kind of give motion to that they're going somewhere. You can go on to the next one. And now Annika and Sori are in the kitchen with grandma and mom. And as you can see, again, I didn't put, that Annika is really speaking about these things. I'm really kind of showing how Annika is feeling. And you've heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. As you can see the look on her face, everybody else is, having a great time. But mom does, is looking there. And I think she sees that Annika is not feeling very comfortable. Annika decides she's going to help with the red rice, because everybody else has something to do and she doesn't have anything to do. So she's feeling even more left out. We can go on to the next one. Now, this is my process. When creating these stories, I usually allow the pictures to come first before the words come to me. That's the process of how I do books. Now, there are some people who write their books out. I am dyslexic. I also have something called synesthesia, which is the ability to see, smell, feel, taste, and hear color. And I'm a stutterer. And so those things kind of make it very, very difficult when I get ready to tell a story, because I'm trying to smell, I'm trying to hear, I'm trying to see, I'm trying to feel, and even taste what that scene might look like. And this was one of the first ones I wanted to show Annika really trying. And there she is with the flour, and then she breaks the eggs, and then the Kool-Aid or the juice is spilt all over the place. And we kind of went back to that first one that you just saw for our end piece. So art goes through a process, especially as an illustrator. When you're telling stories, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We can go on to the next one. And so Annika is now told by her family, we want you to go out of the kitchen. And not because they didn't want her there. Grandma has a beautiful studio and she wants her to go and see the studio. But yes, they kind of want her out of the kitchen because she's getting in the way just a bit. But as you can see, if you look at the arms of these women and little girl, they're much lighter than she is. So the pictures are helping to tell the story that the words are not. Okay, so I really wanted to focus on the look, the skin, the different way that it's being told that, she's different. She's feeling different. She's not as different as she thinks she is, though. So here we go, going on to the next page. And so this is the family wall. On her way to Grandma's studio, she gets to stop in the hallway and she sees all of the beautiful pictures of her family. And as you can see, there's an array of skin color. The older gentleman, which is the great-great-grandfather, over to the left-hand side of the page. And then there's Grandma. And then there's Annika in the middle there. And that little tiny one with the pink, the little brown skin girl with pink. That's her. Also, I just had a major death in my family. And what I do often is put pictures of my loved ones in the book. And so there are a couple of pictures of my mom, my sister, Angel, who just passed, and my little sister, Coy. And so I put those in there as well. When I'm working, I work in collage. So I love finding pieces and putting them in the book. That's everything to me. I enjoy collage. It is my favorite way to express myself and my favorite medium to work in. You can go on to the next page. So here are some of the sketches. You know, there are times when our editors are really trying to concise or get the story down to a couple of words, but those words are impactful and meaningful. And also as an illustrator, I'm trying to do the most impact with pictures, saying what the pictures or the words are saying without saying it through the pictures, basically. And so that's what I'm doing as well. And so these little sketches, you can go on to the next one, are just sketches that I work out in my head. Like I said, sometimes the first thing I see are, like I said, the pictures. And so here's Annika at the table in grandma's office, and she's a little upset. And I did this several times because I wanted to show paint falling off the table, the nesting dolls, and all those good things. And sometimes we put too much into a picture and then we have to take it out. But I love the process of illustration. You can go on to the next slide. And so we added more things in the background here so that the picture didn't look so sparse. I'm always concerned about where the text is going to go. So I really have to be keen on exactly where I want the text to go. So we filled up around. And so when you get a chance to look at nesting dolls, you'll get to see all the wonderful details that we put in the book. You can go on to the next one. And this is Grandma and Anika sitting on Grandma's knee, and they're working to make this doll something special. Now, I didn't have any idea as to why you see the empty side on the right. I didn't know what I wanted to put there, but what I ultimately placed there was a door, and Mom and Sori actually looking in on them, kind of peeking to find out what's going on. Next one. And so this is where we get to the nesting dolls, where Annika is introduced to these special dolls by Grandma, and even Grandma telling her the rich history. Now, in the picture before, when you go back through, this is being recorded. So when you go back through, you'll see that Grandma, great Grandma in the picture has changed as far as how she looks. I did more of a Gibson hairdo, which was a hairdo done back in the 19 or 1800s. Instead of doing that, I did braids on this one, but we kind of went back to the Gibson afterwards. Go on to the next one. And this is the end of the book, where they all come together. And if you can look at Annika's face, you see the love and just the embrace of grandparents. I love doing stories about grandparents and children and family. It's really important to me. So this is everything that goes pouring into the books that I do. I try to do them with a lot of love, a lot of feeling. I'm trying to work your emotions, absolutely, through color, through texture, through collage, and the story, of course. So I hope that you all enjoyed. It was a pleasure being here with all of you. And I'm going to turn it over to Grace or Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Vanessa.
You're welcome.
You mentioned a little bit about collage in your presentation, and I really love how the process of collage itself, composing new images from old pieces of paper, fabric, and materials, ties to the theme of nesting dolls pretty specifically. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about some of the materials you used in the illustrations and why you chose them for this book in particular.
Oh, that's a good question, Sarah. I love collage and I collect a lot of paper. That's the one thing I do. But now I print my own paper. So I enjoy getting up on Saturday mornings, early in the morning before anybody else gets up, and I'm in my pajamas and I have my bowl of Lucky Charms, which I should not be eating at all, but I take out my acrylic paints and my watercolors and pencils and everything, and I begin to just make paper patterns that I will later use. I will go back later and collect things from old dictionaries, old newspapers, magazines, anything black and white. I even tell kids when I'm teaching collage classes with them, take your old homework or mom's bills that she doesn't really want and it's already been paid. Take those and rip them up and turn them into collage paper. And there's something so relaxing about collage. It is about tearing paper. It's about ripping paper and making things fit. It literally causes children to figure it out for themselves, which is a very, very powerful tool. Instead of asking mom and dad, what should I do? Should I put that here? Should I put that there? They're making up in their own minds. I'm going to put this right here. And I don't need anybody else's permission. They don't have to like it. I have to like it. So yeah, collage is real powerful.
Yeah, cool. So when talking about picture books, we often wonder about what kids take away from picture books because they're your intended audience. But by and large, adults are reading picture books with children too. And I'm curious about what you think adults will take away from this book.
You know, colorism is real, especially for African Americans. I know as African American and as I have Asian people in my family as well. Colorism is real, even in Indian families. It's something about being darker that seems to be bad. You know, you think back in the day, the good guy wore white and the bad guy wore black. And then it was black is bad. And what I'm trying to do is break that and release children who are of beautiful dark brown skin, to empower them, to let them know there's nothing wrong with you. You are perfectly fine just the way you are. You are beautiful just like everybody else, but you need to know it first. And so that's really, really important for even adults that read this book, because they tend to judge themselves as well. I don't mind telling people, just in the real, my grandmother, my father's mother, had a preference for her lighter grandchildren than she did her darker. And I was a darker. And so I didn't get all the love and attention that my sisters got, you know, or my cousins got. And it was because of this skin, you know. And what, like I said, what I want to do is break that spirit, I call it, over them and release them to just be, just enjoy and be. And we need to embrace them as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Okay, let's move on to Dan. That's all right. Dan is a cartoonist for the syndicated Rip Haywire comic series and other comics. He loves the zoo and animals. And Tig and Lily is his debut graphic novel series. Take it away, Dan.
Dan, you are muted. Could you please unmute?
I'm sorry. Am I good now?
Yes, you're great. Thank you.
Oh man, I knew I'd screw this up. All right. I'm Dan, and this is the Tig and Lily series. Tig is a house cat, and he thinks he's a tiger. And Lily, until she meets Tig, thought she was a tiger. Maybe what does it mean to be a tiger? And most importantly, what does it mean to be a friend? Is basically what the books are about: friendship. Can we switch to the next slide? Okay, so this is Tig and Lily. My creative process on doing this is, let's see. My creative process is to try to find something that visually makes me happy. Is it something that I could spend hours on and really enjoy? I want the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted the characters to be big and small, and then have their personalities be the opposite. I always sketch out my characters first, and to see if there's anything funny that will pop out of their mouths while doodling. And when Tig said to Lily, "I'm a tiger, what are you?" that really changed the dynamic of what I wanted to do with the book, where he was so convinced that he was a tiger. And I thought that was a really funny idea. So Tig lives in his own childlike world, and Lily treats him much like a mama tiger would her cub. And you can go to the next slide. And this is Tig deciding that he wants to live in the zoo. And you can go to the next slide. And when he gets there, he's decided that this is exactly where he wished he should be. It's perfect. And what I end up doing before I ink and color is I sketch very loosely, hoping for some funny expressions to come out through the pencil, and to see if it comes out a little bit looser and a little more fun for me than trying to perfect something that a different image. When I draw, my goal is to always be lighthearted and funny. I draw on a Wacom Cintiq, and I use a Clip Studio Paint and Photoshop to color on a Mac. Sometimes I'll doodle, in a sketchbook if I don't want to sit at the computer all day, especially if I need to, really work on the project. So you can go to the next slide. My art is very character-driven and humorous and light. I don't really try to be really character-driven. And you can go to the next slide. I'm trying to just do funny things in the strip, but and it has to be a labor of love. And I was jokingly saying that Lily has 2 stripes on her head, 3 stripes on her arms, 5 stripes on her back and tail, and 2 stripes on her knees. And after I was finished, everybody had stripes. I saw stripes on everybody, and that's really about it. I really don't know what else to say, other than, I hope you enjoy the books.
Well, we can start talking about comics instead if you'd like.
You guys, I swear, I said I had like 8, I was like, oh, 8 minutes, that'll be easy. And then you're like 15 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta be able to do this.
So your style seems very influenced by like classic comics and cartoons. I feel like a real Hanna-Barbera feel when I read Tig and Lily. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of your specific influences for these characters.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's pretty much classic comics are what I enjoy. They seem to be the happiest and most fun style out there. And so anything that looks like that, new or old, that reflects that fun, happy feeling is really what I enjoy doing, and I really love doing it. It's one of those things where you just have so much fun. Like the characters are happy, they're making, they're smiling, and it makes you smile and it makes me happy. So yeah, definitely Hanna-Barbera. I had no idea that Fred Flintstone was gonna put such a hold on me.
Is that like a long-standing thing in your creative life? Have you always been drawn to that style?
I had always drawn, but I never knew what an influence that style had on me until I started really perfecting my craft, and I just seemed to want to really add that, I don't know, like Scooby-Doo type characters. They just kind of like, it just works for me, I guess. And I'm blessed with it, so I might as well use it.
So in your other work, you work on a syndicated newspaper comic strip, which of course has a very structured format. And I'm wondering whether the format of working in a newspaper comic strip has affected the way you write Tig and Lily, which of course is longer, but still a little bit episodic.
Yeah, it's I think it taught me to think funny. Like when we're working in daily comics, you have to produce an awful lot of work because it's daily, and so the first thing you learn is what people think is funny, and you try to think funny and everything like that. And I also think working with editors and meeting that deadline has really helped me. It's been the biggest bonus with doing these books, is I know how to hit a deadline. I know how to deal with an editor and all that. And I've been lucky. I've been really lucky and blessed. So.
So I'm curious about like your influences for your art in general, and I'm wondering what the comic was that made you really want to work in comics.
Well, I guess Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes was a big one, and but I've always loved, comics, and I've always loved children's books. And when I realized that we could do graphic novels, that was big, because for me, I always thought books were a lot like Dr. Seuss, where they were like just a few pages, and it was a big illustration. But when we could actually do graphic art, I thought that was just a perfect fit for me. And again, blessed that we're able to do it, and really happy to do it.
What's something that inspires you that's not a book or a comic?
Oh, geez. I guess my kids, they have more crazy stories in their lives than I could ever dream up. And they remind me a lot of Tig. So
have you gotten any specific jokes from your children that pop up in Tig and Lily?
well, the one thing that I do have is my youngest, he wants things, he just, and it reminds me a lot of how Tig is, where he just has to have something regardless of what Lily feels about it. He just has to have it. And I think it's that funny childhood, want that makes the characters really work. And it's funny. I mean, we always end up getting him what he wants, but yeah, that's just one of the things that I think about that inspire me. And so when I'm trying to draw from life, those are the things that I think of.
Great. Who are some illustrators working today that you think deserve more attention than they're getting?
Oh, I don't know. This, it seems like everybody I know is doing well. I really don't have an answer for that.
Well, who are your three favorite illustrators who are working right now? Who do you look to when you're working on your own work?
I like, geez, I don't know. I think Norm Feudy, who does Beacon Alley, is really great. He's a good friend of mine. Mark Parisi, he does Marty Pants, and he also does the comic strip Off the Mark, which is the panel. And Lincoln Purse is pretty great. Big Nate. So those are the guys I get along with, and I love their work. I think they're great. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really spend a lot. I'm so busy working. I don't really spend a lot of time looking at books, as much as I should.
So we have a question from the audience. Can you talk a little bit about how you started out as an illustrator and how you landed on this path for yourself?
Yeah, I was self-taught. I got a job in Connecticut working at an animation studio that was, and I ended up being like a cleanup artist for them and also a character designer. And from there, I just kind of hung around. I knew I wanted to be a comic strip artist more than anything because of Charles Schultz. And I just put in the work, and I just tried really hard to perfect my craft. And then I got lucky to get, I talked to Norm Feudy, and he got me to talk to his agent. And from there, it just all took off. But by then, I mean, this was 3 or 4 years ago. And by then I think I was really ready to do a book, and, when there's an opportunity, you have to do it. And so, yeah, it's a lot. I've been doing this, I think, I've been doing it for a long time, since I was in my 20s, and I'm 51 now. So I've been doing it for a while, but I mean, it's satisfying. I spent a lot of time with the drawing board. But,
Draw for 30 years is the answer.
Yeah, just keep at it, keep working at it, I guess. But yeah, I hate to say it, but it's hard work. But then it's satisfying too. So.
So a little bit pertinent to that, what is the one art tool that you can't live without in your work?
My glasses. I can't see. I can't see anything. I'm farsighted. So like when I'm up close, everything's blurry, and I can see perfectly, like looking down the street. But man, when I start start drawing, I can't see anything. So yeah, I got to put these. Thank God they're only reading glasses. You know, I went to the doctor with my son, and he had to get prescription, but I was like, darn it, I thought having glasses would be cool, but it's kind of hard.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, Dan. And we're going to
Thanks.
move on to Emma Steinkellner next. Emma is an illustrator, writer, and cartoonist living in Los Angeles, California. She is a graduate of Stanford University and the illustrator of the Eisner-nominated comic Quince. She is the author and illustrator of the OK Witch graphic novel series. The floor is yours, Emma.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. First off, I'm going to just kiss up and say thank you so much, Vanessa and Dan. I'm so excited I got to see you present today. Those were fantastic. Your work is just so rich and gorgeous and fun. Anyway, now me. I'm Emma Steinkellner, and I'm the author and illustrator of NELL of Gumbling, My Extremely Normal Fairy Tale Life. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about how I drew it. So I love illustrating graphic novels, especially for this 8 to 12-year-old audience, because these are exactly the kind of books that would have been my constant companion at that age. I have to admit, I'm a little envious of these kids and the multitude of graphic novels made, especially for them, that they get to choose from. I was an Archie Comics fiend as a kid, but that was kind of where it ended. And I loved books with pictures in them. But there just wasn't this multitude of like graphic novels made especially for that age range, and a little jealous. But it does fill me with more joy than envy that I get to be one of the author illustrators creating especially for them. I love graphic novels. I think they are great for kids who will read anything they can get their hands on and just want to have some variety in their recreational reading. And I, of course, love them for being a really open invitation for reluctant readers who get intimidated by big blocks of prose or a big chunk of text, and feel more comfortable reading this way, where it's a little bit more broken up, where the story's being told in different ways. I think pictures can really illuminate and inform a story in this unique way, and give readers greater access to what's going on. NELL of Gumbling specifically is the illustrated diary of a young aspiring artist who lives in the enchanted land of Gumbling, where magic, fairies, unicorns, or kind of unicorn centaur people, and thumb-sized people are ordinary, and the history of the town are these real-life fairy tales. We can move to the next slide. So doing this graphic novel, sorry, that was the first slide. Next slide after this. Great. Doing this graphic novel diary hybrid format freed me to express different parts of the story in different ways. I have these more kind of, on your left, you'll see these more kind of diagram-y, chart-like pages that help explain character with these little captions. It help explain character and setting like up at the top of the book, so you kind of get all this exposition out of the way in this fun visual approach. I also have in the middle, you'll see more sort of text-heavy pages with spot illustrations, where we can really sink into Nell's POV and what's going on with her in a particular moment. And also to the right, more traditionally paneled graphic novel pages for the more dialogue-heavy or action-packed scenes. I think a mix of these three types of pages, and these are the three main types. There's also like plenty of different layouts, but these are the three main types. And I think a mix of the three helps keep readers engaged, because each page simply looks different at the most basic level. So when you're flipping through it, there's just like, each page signals your brain and makes it light up in a new and different way. And on a visual literacy level, I frankly think it's kind of cool for kids to see how expressing different parts of a story with different approaches can be really effective. Also, I myself am an avid journaler, and I hope that a book like this could inspire kids to keep their own diaries and journals, and imagine how, illustrating, putting pictures in them could add to the way that they tell their own stories. Next slide, thanks. Also, I do just want to show off one of my favorite spreads in the book. I did put a lot of time into this because, well, it was very fun for me. My brother is a great supporter of my artwork, and he calls these kinds of pages in my book, these are sort of like one of my trademarks. He calls these kinds of pages in my books my tinies. And I get so into making them. Often these types of spreads are the most hard work, and often the pages that are the most work are my favorites, not because I particularly enjoy hard work more, just because getting interested in what I'm making makes me work harder. So all these meticulous little roofs and windows and doors and chimneys just get kind of hypnotic and therapeutic after a while, and they take a while. As a kid, I used to get bored and scared by the idea of drawing buildings. I was so much more drawn to illustrating characters and faces and clothes and stuff that interested me. But when I realized that you can treat buildings and structures and trees and landscapes with as much character as people, it started to really click for me. And I think this spread might also give you a good idea of the visual style of Gumbling the Place. It's, of course, inspired by a mishmash of classic fairy tale book illustrations by the likes of Arthur Rackham or Sheila Beckett, but also, move to the next slide, I was really inspired by a huge range of these charming Technicolor studio era movie musicals mostly, that depict fairy tale-like worlds, like Danny Kaye's The Court Jester or Hans Christian Andersen, or The Bluebird, the Shirley Temple movie. There was also a version of The Bluebird made in the 70s that I haven't seen yet, but it has like Liz Taylor, and I want to see it. Anyway, everyone knows what's on my watch list now. Also, Donkey Skin by Jacques Demy. He has a version of the Pied Piper as well that I'm very interested in seeing. Movies like, or other kind of Technicolor masterpieces that everyone knows about, like The Adventures of Robin Hood or The Wizard of Oz. Tons more. I could just list movies for the rest of the time we have here. But I also have a Spotify playlist of all the music that has Gumbling vibes for me. I like to let a lot inspire me. And charm is definitely what I'm going for here. That's something that Vanessa and Dan's work is bursting with, and I try to have a healthy pinch of it in what I make as well. I also would like to shout out, down on the bottom, we have a shot of a woman working on one of the Animagic stop motion productions, headed by Tadahito Mochinaga, which you might recognize as all those like Rankin Bass stop motion Christmas specials. I love those. I would also like to note that the traditional animation arm of Rankin Bass employed brilliant young artists, and one of them was the legendary Hayao Miyazaki, who would go on to create plenty more lush, detailed, spellbinding films that were also inspirational for me. I also want to note to the right, I have some shots from the films of Ernst Lubitsch, who's a master of charm, so much so that his special brand of it on film was known as the Lubitsch Touch. I think I'm done with my lecture almost on film. And many of his films, by the way, in sort of a Gumbling nod, were set in places that don't quite exist, although they were definitely evocative of his native Hungary. So I think we can move to slide 5 now. I'm done gushing about everything I like to watch. So I wanted the world of Gumbling to feel stylistically unified. So I stuck to a bright and varied, but somewhat limited color scheme and a couple of key visual elements that I decided are just sort of important to the folk art of Gumbling. So stars, plus signs, mice, intermingling colors of cord, eyes. It's just starting to sound like new Lucky Charms marshmallow shapes. I bet we didn't think we were getting 2 references to Lucky Charms today. Anyway, to the left is left top, I guess, is an early color palette I was working with. Below that is a carousel, a Gumbling carousel that has all the kind of native creatures of Gumbling and a couple of those elements I was telling you about, those kind of swirling cords and stars. And then to the right are the historical figures of Gumbling, who are basically fairy tale characters from Gumbling, the Gumbling lore that Nell researches for her apprenticeship. And I wanted to, even though like some of them are royals and some of them are peasants from when Gumbling was a monarchy, or they're from different time periods in the history of Gumbling, there are colors and visual motifs that unify them all. I wanted it to all feel just tied together. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts of, I guess, the pre-production process. We're already going with like movie parlance for everything else, so why not? Designing all my characters' outfits for all the scenes in the book. And what's especially fun for me is storytelling through fashion, a passion for fashion. For instance, I try to have Nell and her boss, Mrs. Birdneck's outfits complement each other and become more visually harmonious throughout the story as they learn to understand and appreciate each other more. And I think signals like that support the storytelling emotionally, which is one of these things that only visual media can do. Next slide, please. So just for fun, here's a couple of sketch pages just to see what those look like. I love the energy of these sketched out pages. So much so that when it was time to ink the line work, I kind of felt like refining these drawings too much, flattened them out. Next slide. And so I decided that instead of inking over these sketches, I would actually just polish and revise the sketches that were already there. Above is what it would have looked like inked, and below is what I chose to move forward with. Personally, I love that bottom one. I think it looks like something out of someone's personal journal, and I love the more imperfect energy it gives the whole book. I think it just makes it feel more intimate and grounded. Next slide. And that's NELL of Gumbling. I hope it's been fun to take a little peek behind the curtain, and I'm really excited to answer any questions that may have come up. And I'm very excited for you to check out this book when it launches in just a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you for telling us all about it. I love a lecture on film history at any time of day. So Nell really loves to make comics in the book, and as you mentioned, you really embrace the hybrid format. And I'm curious about what made that work particularly well for this story as opposed to a different story.
Yeah, so I can tell you how I got there. I mean, you might know my work from The OK Witch and The OK Witch and the Hungry Shadow, which those are both, the illustrator's depiction of a world and its characters. And this is a little bit different because it's from one of those characters' points of view, which was just an interesting challenge in some ways. This originally started as an idea to make a book of original fairy tales in comic form. And then it turned into an idea where it was like, oh, it's my Emma Steinkellner's diary as I'm traveling to the land of Gumbling. I was very inspired by like those Lucy Nicely's travelogue comic diaries. And so I was like, oh, I'll write and draw as myself about my year of living in Gumbling, and the metafiction of it was that I was staying with my cousin and his kids in Gumbling. Then the more me and my agent thought about it, the less that sounded like an appealing book for kids. So I decided to shift the focus to one of those like fictional, my Emma Steinkellner's cousin's kids, who was Nell. She already existed in that version, and I was like, this should just be her diary. I'm going to hand it off to her. I'm basically 12 anyway, like it'll translate. So I made it her diary from her POV of this kid in this magical place where everything's just ordinary to her. And I was, when I was a kid, I loved the Amelia notebooks by Marissa Moss, the Amelia books, and the books of Kate and M. Sarah Kleiss that are more kind of epistolary style books. The ideas just flowed so freely for me in this format and in this voice. I just love being her voice. And like I was mentioning before, just as an author and illustrator working in this comic diary hybrid form just gives me the ability to tell the story in different ways at different points, whether that's going to be more text heavy or more illustration heavy. So I love it.
I also think there's something really nice about like the in-betweeniness of a hybrid book and the in-betweeniness of like middle schoolers who are reading this book. I think there's something like about having your feet in two different kinds of formats when you're trying to figure out who you are that also is really appealing. I don't know if that's true. That's just like my gut feeling about it.
Yeah, I like how it sounds, so I'll take it.
So you touched a little bit on your character designs, which are really dynamic, and you do a really good job of making a lot of different types of people and creatures, even people within the same family, look very different, which is not always true in comics. And I'm curious about how you approach character design specifically.
Yeah. So like I said, I loved Archie comics growing up, but I was always like, there would sometimes be a storyline where Betty and Veronica could just fool people and switch places by like putting on a wig of each other's hair. And I was like, that just wouldn't happen. Like, people look too different. They like, people are too different for that to work without being like identical twins. So like, I knew, this is not a dig at those comics, by the way. They had a real sense of humor about it and poked fun at it. It just made me realize that it was more important to me as an illustrator and a designer to have varied designs than stylistic uniformity. It's a personal choice for every artist, but like, for instance, Vanessa has a family where people look different within that family, and that's just how it is in real life. So I think it's a cool thing to express if that is your passion as an artist. It looks like we might be running out of time, but
that's okay. You can. I'm also so curious about like how you approach character design, and if you want to take another couple of minutes to talk about it, I think that would be fine, because we've got a little bit more time left if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like to think about these characters as individuals, and that might sound obvious, but when you're populating a whole world, I think it's helpful to remember that everyone has their own size, color, shape, features, wardrobe, way of styling themselves, their way of gesturing, a range of expressions. And I guess to add on top of that, and then in this world, there are also people with horns, people with wings, people who are this big. And so I wanted it to feel like this full world where everyone is an individual. And I realized that a lot of the film examples that I cited as inspiration, like, are old and much more homogenous in their casting of what a fairy tale world would look like. And I didn't want to do that with Gumbling. I wanted it to be a world that's always hosted a huge range of characters who all look and are unique. So I try to be thoughtful about that. And also, it's just fun for me. I think when you take the world seriously enough to get interested in imagining who all these characters are this intensely, hopefully that comes across to the reader and helps ground them in a world like this that has its own funny rules and logic, because you could maybe recognize yourself or someone you know. So there we go.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much to Vanessa, Dan, and Emma. We're so glad you were able to join us today and share some insights into your creative process. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, PowerPoint slides, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Recently, ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom reported 1,269 demands to censor library books and resources in 2022, the highest number of attempted book bans since ALA began compiling data about censorship in libraries more than 20 years ago. Join the Unite Against Book Bans campaign to help protect the freedom to read and to empower readers everywhere. Visit uniteagainstbookbans.org for more information, resources to donate, and more. We have a special announcement introducing Booklist's Book Club, a year-long partnership with your favorite publishers. Each month, Booklist will showcase book club picks and supporting materials from a different publisher, offering a wide range of genres and age groups to fit the needs of any book discussion group. Mark your calendars for September, when we'll reveal the first selection from HarperCollins children's books. To find out more information, scan the QR code on this slide or visit our website. Whether you're young patrons and students are visiting the library after school or stopping by on the weekends for some new items, grow your collection with Booklist. Subscribe now to get print and digital copies of Booklist, archive access to past issues, and digital access to our new publication, Booklist Reader, for only $99. Visit our website for more details. Thank you again for joining us for today's webinar, and one final thank you to our wonderful panelists and to our sponsor, Random House Children's Books. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.